What up, guys? It's Dom. Welcome back to another movie review. Today we're going over The Union. The Union, released in 2024, directed by Julian Farino, Mike, a down-to-earth construction worker, is thrust into the world of super spies and secret agents when his high school sweetheart, Roxanne, recruits him on a high-stakes U.S. intelligence mission. Make sure to stay to the end to see where The Union will rank in its year, decade, and all time. But for now, let's just go over the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. So I thought the plot of this movie was good. It definitely could have been executed a lot better, but overall the idea was really cool. The Union being this separate organization from like the FBI and the CIA and more standard spies and agent type organizations. And instead, it's really just like a blue collar working organization, construction, garbage man, mailman, but it's an agency hidden in plain sight. So I thought that was the part that really interested me. The actual story of this movie and what happens in it, it's a hit or miss, but that part really pulled me into the movie. It was really cool to see, okay, there's construction workers working there. Are they part of the union? Are they not? Okay, there's a mailman driving by. Is he about to jump out with an AK? Who knows? But that part was interesting. The rest, really up for debate. The second essential aspect is attraction. Now, this movie was all right when it came to entertainment. It had interesting parts, but it also had parts where I kind of really didn't care what was happening for it. I was almost zoning out. But the parts that were entertaining were very entertaining. So I have to give it that. It knew how to attract the viewers, and it knew that it could. I just feel like they didn't do it as often as they should have. The third essential aspect is theme. I mean, with a lot of spy movies and agent movies, it's kind of the same kind of theme. I think this one's just, you can't really trust anyone, can you? The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. So the conversations had in this movie do sound real, but there are some points that it really does fall apart. There's a scene where Roxanne finds out that someone, I'm not going to spoil, but someone ended up being a bad guy, and she was talking as if she knew it all along, even though her character did not. So it almost felt preemptive, and definitely the tone of voice was not the correct one, because I can tell that Halle Berry knew that he was a bad guy the whole time, but Roxanne shouldn't have. But somehow it sounded like she did. So I don't know. Those kind of dialect part of the dialogue was really iffy sometimes. But the rest was fine. It sounded real. Nothing to complain about. The fifth essential aspect is acting. So the acting was okay. No one really did a terrible job. There was some okay acting in it. But the main ones that did do well was Mark Wahlberg as Mike. He did a really good job. I mean, he's a seasoned actor. He knows what he's doing. He did know how to portray the character really well. Halle Berry as Roxanne, she also did a really good job. Again, another one of the main characters. She had the bigger role. She is a good actress, so it makes sense why she was given that role. But honestly, even though he was kind of a side character, I want to talk about J.K. Simmons as Tom. He's kind of the leader of the entire union, and he did an outstanding job. I thought his scenes were honestly the best ones. I was never really bored watching him on screen. Maybe that's just because I really like J.K. Simmons because he's J. Jonah Jameson, but he did a great job. I can't wait to see more of him, to be honest. The sixth essential aspect is cinematography. So obviously cinematography is kind of talking more about emotions, and I gotta say this film doesn't really hit it as hard, but at the end, when it really gets romantic, is honestly when you feel the most emotion. That's when I felt the most of it. I really didn't feel anything too much throughout most of the movie, but the ending, I gotta say, did hook me with that. So I think cinematography did okay. I'm just talking about the ending, it did great, but throughout it only did okay. The seventh essential aspect is editing. So The Union is an hour and 47 minutes long, and I honestly think that was a perfect length for the movie. It had enough time to really stretch out the plot, get to the important points, have some good character development, but not so long that you really get sick of it and you want the movie to just end. There's too much going on. So honestly, I think it was paced really well. So I gotta give them that. Even though the movie was an okay movie, it's still pretty good. I probably still would rewatch it, but the pacing was one of the things they did really well. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really remember the soundtrack. I know there was one, I know it fit, but no songs or anything, scenes with it that really stood out to me. The ninth essential aspect is directing. So the director of this movie is Julian Farino, and it was his job to take these previous 8 essential aspects, put them together to make a movie that's worth watching. And I think he definitely made a movie worth watching. I would see this again. I would recommend this. It's not the best movie, but it's just good enough to make it rewatchable. And he has had a lot of experience with TV movies and TV shows, but not a lot with movies. He's actually only previously directed 2 movies, and they are The Last Yellow and The Oranges. And I've never heard of either of those movies. I know The Last Yellow was, I think, from 1997, and The Oranges is from the early 2000s, but I've never heard of those movies. If they're similar to this one, it's probably really very in the middle, and it has some flaws, but it does have some great scenes, so I don't know. I guess we'll see if he makes another movie. And the 10th essential aspect is time. Will The Union stand the test of time? It's really hard to say. It is a Netflix original, which usually means it won't stand the test of time, and it is kind of forgettable. It has some great actors in it, and the plot is at least somewhat interesting. I feel like if I remember it, it will just be because the Union, the organization itself, is a really cool concept. That might be why, but as it is, it probably won't stand the test of time. Now, onto the reviews. Now, these reviews are pretty spread out. So Rotten Tomatoes critics gave it a 37%, Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it a 23%, and IMDb gave it a 55%. Now, I'm just going to move away from the 23 and 37. They don't need to be there. I'll talk about the 55 a little bit. So it is right down the middle, which I honestly kind of agree with. I do think that it has a lot of flaws, but it also has a lot of success. So it's really down the middle. Personally, I think it's just slightly above that mark. I feel like it doesn't really need to be that hard in the middle. I feel like there's way more worse movies than it than better. But there's a lot of movies out there. So who knows? And finally, the rankings. Where will The Union rank in its year, decade, and in all time? Let's find out, starting with 2024. It's going to be 4th. It's going to be right above If and right below The Fall Guy. Now, this movie does not compare to The Fall Guy. I think The Fall Guy is better in every single way. It's a better romantic movie. It's a better action movie. I think the plot is overall better. Again, the one thing I'll give to The Union is that the concept is really cool because of the actual Union organization. But The Fall Guy, again, being a stuntman, that whole premise is very interesting to me as well. So I just, it's not even close. That wasn't hard. Now, when it came to If, I think If is a really good movie. I probably wouldn't rewatch it. I might, but the acting was pretty good in it. The concept was interesting. The movie just didn't really hit perfectly to me compared to the other movies, of course, that I've reviewed so far. But I just think The Union has that upper edge on it. I just think the acting is slightly better in The Union. I think that the premise is more interesting. And I don't know. I looked at my list. I thought, okay, that's right where it goes. And I just stuck with it. So that's where it goes. And in the 2020s, it's actually going to be very similar. It's going to be in 4th, also above If and below The Fall Guy. For the same exact reasons, I'm not really going to get into it. There's not really a point. But in all time, it's going to be 20th, above The Wolverine and below Kick-Ass. Now, The Wolverine, you guys know by now that I love Marvel. It's my go-to thing when it came, like the MCU. I've rewatched it so many times, but The Wolverine just did not hit for me. I don't know why. Maybe because they really made Wolverine seem very weak, and that really just turned me off in a way. I like seeing Wolverine as the guy that's really hard to defeat, and he was getting his ass whooped in that movie. And I don't know, I just thought the plot was kind of iffy. I thought the characters were cool, but not played out perfectly. The movie just had a lot of misses to me. So this movie, I think, is better. And Kick-Ass, I thought that was way better than The Union. I thought the characters were very interesting, and of course it's being based off the comic, but I thought that it did have some cringy jokes, but I still think the jokes were way better than Union had. Union had some jokes. A lot of them missed, but there was some really good ones. But I feel like all of Kick-Ass's were cringy, but still were at least funny enough where they didn't have any terrible, terrible jokes. And sure, that one character, I think what is his name is, I think the Red Mist in that movie. I don't know. I hated him, but other than that, I loved all the characters. So It wasn't really hard. This one was honestly probably one of the easier ones I had lately. I just kind of stuck it in the list and I thought it looked perfect. So that's all I have for The Union. If you guys enjoyed this review, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next. Hope you guys have an amazing day. Peace out.